had overvalued
Previous system.
stocks. No, they had overvalued stocks.
Hmm.
Which makes perfect sense because at one time they were the most highly valued video game stock on planet.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was overpriced.
I would say some things are overpriced, and yeah, that was one of them.
I mean, not everything is overpriced, but sometimes you get some stuff. It's like, yeah, this is clearly overpriced.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're live with another episode of BS Busters. Thank you for joining us. We have another podcast member who will probably get here at some time. So before we go any further, let's have the lady introduce herself, and then I will give you guys the tell you what we're covering tonight, and then we'll dive right into it.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the BS podcast. I'm Joy Lemon Star, and if anything, eh, why am I not surprised to hear of all people that's being back on this group? It's going to be Activision Blizzard.
And Ubisoft and Rockstar. Um,
Ooh, boy.
that's going to be our first topic. So, our first topic is going to be in light of the struggles of Nintendo releasing games on the Nintendo Switch N64 library last week and Rockstar's GTA 3D Definitive Edition debacle. Question is, why are so many companies having trouble re-releasing their legacy properties? Um, you want to dive in first?
I'm guessing basically that they're using the new staff to do some remix of older equipment. So then again, that's probably too generous.
I think in Nintendo's case, it's maybe too generous. I mean that may have actually that may have some merit. For Rockstar's case, that isn't true because the studio that worked on the port of GTA, like all three of those games, have been remastering GTA games for the iOS and Android for the last like 7 8 years.
And that kind of bites when you think about it.
Actually, I take that back. That kind of torpedoes both excuses that both companies might have because 8 9 10 years ago Rockstar had an in-house studio that was really good at porting their games to downporting them to other platforms, and Nintendo 10 years ago had really good N64 emulators on the Wii and Wii U. So I mean, it just seems kind of weird that you would have, um, legacy properties, like iconic legacy properties. Mario 64, for a lot of people, Mario 64 is more popular than Mario Kart. Mario Kart 64 is more popular than Mario Kart on the SNES. Like for a lot of people, they never played Star Fox for the SNES. When you say, "Hey, did you play Star Fox?" They're like, "I played Star Fox on the N64."
Hmm. And before you ask, I have played it on the SNES and the N64, and I prefer the 64 version.
Well, I mean, I'm not talking about preferences. I'm just talking about like what is more popular to the general public.
Audience.
Yeah, and for most people, I would wager like when someone says Star Fox, they think Star Fox 64. versus Star Fox on the SNES. Now, as a hardcore Nintendo fan, when someone says, "Hey, you want to play Mario Kart?" I'm like, "Okay, which one?" But for a more casual Nintendo fan, it's like, "Okay, Mario Kart." A lot of them, if you're in my age group, depending on the age group, they're probably going to think Mario Kart 64 or Mario Kart Double Dash, or Mario Kart for the Wii. Like that's what they're going to be thinking.
At least with me, I at least agree there because main thing the one thing that I will say, I never found I never found any interest in Mario Kart Wii.
I mean, I heard a lot of people liked it. I mean, I'm gonna keep it real. Most of the games on the N60 on the Wii that had multiplayer, like online multiplayer, aside from the Conduit 1 and 2, I really didn't play the online multiplayer for. And I know I'm being kind of hypocritical when I say that, but you know, it is what it is. Um, but yeah, for me, when I played online multiplayer games, I was not playing it on the Wii or the Wii U. Well, the Wii U with Splatoon, like a lot with Splatoon and Mario Kart 8, but those were like the major. I didn't really play Smash Brothers for the Wii U on. I didn't play a lot of multiplayer with that game. Um, Mainly because that's not really my favorite Smash Brothers game. Not even close. Um,
Not surprised, but
and that egregious pricing that they had for the DLC for that game was just.
uh, trust me, the characters are kind of are mostly worth it. The costumes you're gonna have to bite a bullet and think if you want to get those.
If you wanted to buy just the characters, you were gonna spend like 138 bucks plus change. Um, if you wanted the characters
That is if
and
you're going for both versions. Too.
yeah, if you were doing both versions, if you were getting all the characters plus the me costumes, you were spending like $258, which is more than the cost of both games combined. That is fucking ridiculous. That's inexcusable. Um,
Mm.
and it was
The characters are questionable, as I said. The costumes I fight you on, as
it,
in I say you'll be ready you'll be eating dirt rather than buying those costumes.
I mean, even the characters was too much. Because I mean, remember the base game was $60. If you were like me and got the Ultimate Edition that came with the GameCube, with the customized GameCube controller and the four player controller dock, which I did because I mean, really, even during the Wii era, I didn't play Brawl with the Wii mode. I played Brawl with the GameCube controller. so, so I mean, even if you're playing that game, so like you spent $90 on the game, then you spend over $90 to get all the characters, just the characters for that game. That is ridiculous. That's over 100. That's almost $200. It's like 193, 194. That is too goddamn much for DLC. That is very expensive. Um,
Questionable. I'm
and
standing by that.
I mean, I personally, like I said, I'm not against DLC in games. I think they would have been smarter doing the DLC like they did in Smash Ultimate, where they had a season pass. Like you could get them individually, or you could buy the season pass. That's much better than doing it, bit by bit. Like buy this character here, get this character there. It got a little bit too egregious to me. Um, But that's neither here nor there. We're talking about companies who have legacy games not getting them out. So, uh, I don't know what the problem is. I don't know what is. Here's what I've heard. Because, like I said, for me, like the issue between these both of these is the same. Um, for me, they cost the same. Like for example, I bought the GTA Definitive Edition through Amazon Pay, so I paid $50 for it. The N64 library and Sega Genesis library add-on for expansion pack with the original with the base is like $30 plus $20, so it's $50. So basically, you're paying $50 for bullshit on both cases. Something that was released in
I
a
was I was gonna say that's for the that's for all the costumes or something else.
no. This is back to the original base point
Or
of legacy games being
okay.
released in deplorable states. With the N64 Online, it's like it feels like they had an emulator for Mario Kart 64 for Mario 64 from you know uh, from that Mario 35th anniversary, and then they basically said, okay, we don't need to actually test this on other games. One size fits all,
Hmm.
which to me just feels a little lazy. I mean,
It depends on the game,
no.
but yeah.
I mean, because the thing is this. Okay, you know it works on one thing, but the N64 has notoriously is notoriously tough to emulate. So, like, it's almost like depending on when a game came out, what year it came out, the architecture is the emulator. What has to be emulated is different because you look at early N64 games and some of them look like ass. Then you look at N64 games that came out towards the end of that console's life cycle, and there's some really advanced games on that system. Um, and if you have an emulator, it's not going to be at the same level. So I'm kind of confused. Um, how you can have a multi-billion-dollar company and all these studios, and there was like no oversight. Like no one sat down and played these games and said, this is not really running the way it should.
Hmm.
For both of them. For both of them. For both Nintendo and Rockstar. Uh, like there's been like a huge amount of games that were just not running the way they should. Um, so
I was gonna say Rockstar has it even worse since if anything, that's just one game, or at least they basically make about one or two games, while Nintendo makes multiple.
no, all three of them. All three GTA games are having issues and bugs and stuff. Kind of similar to the N64 Switch Online. Mario, the Legend of Zelda runs like ass. Star Fox runs like ass. Uh, Mario Kart 64 runs like ass. I mean, it seems kind of like somebody in the quality assurance department dropped the fucking ball. Like, it seems like someone booted up these games running on the hardware, played it for like 10 minutes, and then rubber stamped it and said, it's okay.
Hmm.
At least that's what it feels like. When you get these types of issues, that's what it feels like. I'm not saying people need to be fired, but someone definitely needs to be called into an office and get their ass chewed out a little bit.
At least I can agree there that somebody in quality assurance needs to be wrung out, be wrung into the dryer. I mean, run through the ringer a little.
It's like, hey, bro, uh, like someone goes in there, they've got a full ass, they come out, like half of their ass is gone. It's like half my ass is gone because you fucked up. I mean, like
I was going to make the joke that they got put through Weight Watchers.
no, because there are people who exercise and they lose a lot of weight in their ass, but their ass gets toned, but there's still an ass there. Okay, I mean, someone like have you ever noticed you go someplace and you see some middle aged dude sit up and like for some reason the middle aged dude has no ass whatsoever, kind of like that. It's like they walk into the office, they have an ass. They walk out, they got a middle-aged man's ass, which means no ass. It's like, excuse me, sir, are you aware you suffer from no ass-itis? You have no ass.
That work. That works as well.
So, so what do you think they could do to not have this type of debacle where they release legacy content and it runs like ass, or it's just an embarrassment?
I would say more play testers, and maybe I don't know, try to be have it go through more than one testing.
I could see that. Maybe not cut corners in the QA. Actually put things through their paces, have more rigorous quality assurance testing. That'd be good. Um, Anything just to not have your legacy content look, because this is bad. Okay, it's bad for people who like when people play like on this Nintendo Switch Online. When people play N64 games, they want to play an idealized version of what they played when they were kids. It's really hard to play Mario Kart 64 online when it's fucking skipping and dodging because one person in the race has a shitty online connection. And so everyone's online connection gets gimped because one person's online connection is trash. On the other end of the spectrum, it's not cool to release a trilogy that is fundamentally fucked. In the case of Rockstar, that's not cool.
I fully agree on.
Um, Especially when you think about these are like, I mean, whether you like Grand Theft Auto or not, you cannot argue against the fact that GTA 3, Vice City, San Andreas are some of the most influential open world sandbox games of all time.
I would say you'd be hard pressed to find any 3D game that has that kind of legacy.
I
At
mean,
least, on some places.
I mean,
Like,
I'll just, I mean, let me put it this way. GTA has influenced so many other open world games, it's not even funny. I mean, you could make the argument that Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, which everyone was like, this game is so unique, it's so amazing. Guess what? Steals a lot of gameplay concepts from Grand Theft Auto.
I was gonna say, Ocarina of Time or Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild. Breath of the
Oh
Wild
boy.
steals a lot of gameplay concepts. Okay, here's what you do in Grand Theft Auto, in the 3D open world sandbox Grand Theft Autos, okay? You travel around into territory to territory. Each territory has gangs that have basically taken it over. You run around, you run into a gang, you take their asses out, you loot their shit, move on to the next area. Then you go to an area, do little side missions and missions in order to clear out the area and move on to the next area. The whole time you're getting more powerful, gaining access to better weapons, shit like that, to take on tougher enemies. What do you do in Breath of the Wild? You travel around in a sandbox style place, fighting gangs of enemies who take over certain areas. As you defeat them, you get better access to better weapons that let you take on tougher enemies. It's the same shit. The only difference is that Breath of the Wild doesn't actually have dungeons. Well, has like 4 dungeons, and and the story is kind of mediocre at best.
I was gonna say floaty at best. I'm I'm trying to keep on the theme of what Breath of the Wild does. That you're going to air.
Breath of the Wild story is mediocre at best. As a matter of fact, Breath of the Wild has more in common with GTA 3 than it does GTA Vice City or San Andreas, because at least those 2 games have good music. GTA 3
I was gonna
has
say
GTA 3's main character
Breath
is
of the Wild
Claude.
has a lack of music.
Yeah. GTA 3 has the music is okay, but no one's like ever's like, oh man, this is the best music ever. But GTA 3 has really fucking shit. Has a protagonist who does not talk. He goes around murdering the shit out of gang members. What do you do in Breath of the Wild? Link doesn't talk, and he goes around murdering the shit out of gang members. I mean, there's a lot of similarities between the 2 franchises,
True.
but that's neither here nor there. So basically, our conclusion for the first topic is both of these companies need to take a step back and really do some major quality control for the shit they're releasing, and not just shit something out and say, "Hey, it's some of our old shit. Take it anyway." Here's the irony of ironies about all of this, though. Another legacy game was released this week, Thursday, 10-year anniversary for Skyrim. And guess the fuck what? The least broken legacy game released this week. Of course, to be fair, Bethesda has a lot of practice re-releasing Skyrim, so if you want to be good at something, you got to practice at it. I mean, that's a backhanded compliment for your ass right there. But let's move on to the next topic. So our next topic is a little bit more fun. We will discuss RPGs that need reboots or remasters from a list from Screen Rant called Classic JRPG Revival Series That Need a Revival. I will share my screen so that people can see that. So I think this will be an interesting
demonstration of what we will want to see in a revival.
Well, I mean, if you look at the screen, you'll see some really cool stuff here. So let's get to the list. Oh wait, they don't have it in list form. I'll have to read it. Okay, so basically, let me get started. There's still a classic number of JRPG series that are going strong, with sequels in development for mainstream juggernauts like Final Fantasy, Tales, and Dragon Quest, as well as more eclectic titles like Shin Megami Tensei 5. For those who have followed the genre over the years, many have noted a larger number of JRPG series that have gone a generation or longer without a sequel, which absolutely deserve current-day revivals. Some of these series are caught up in licensing issues, or their teams have disbanded, as is the case with Shadow Hearts. Man, that's sad. Shadow Hearts was awesome. Others, like Phantasy Star, have been reimagined in a different format, with the MMORPG series Phantasy Star Online, and are less likely to return to their single-player, turn-based roots. Some had divisive sequels, which put the future of the franchise in jeopardy, as with Breath of Fire and Star Ocean. The Shadow Hearts series is a cult classic that is among those most in need of a sequel, though that is sadly unlikely. The trilogy of PS2 RPGs took place in the same setting as the obscure PS1 game Kudelka, and offered a novel combination of real world locations and historical figures with high magic, dark themes, as well as a uniquely bizarre humor. The second Shadow Hearts game, Covenant, is considered among the best RPGs in the RPG rich PS2 library. The original developer, Satnath, started out as a subsidiary of SNK. After SNK's buyout by Aruz, Satnath briefly rebranded itself as Nautilus before being disbanded altogether. Due to the original development team's dissolution and the niche status of the game, it is unlikely. It is unlikely. My God, whoever edited this sucks.
It's
It is
unlikely.
well, it doesn't say unlikely. It should say unlikely. It says it is unlike that Shadow Hearts. Okay, I'm going to change it. It is unlikely that Shadow Hearts will ever receive a fourth title, though some fans still hold out hope. For those of you who don't know, Shadow Hearts was a really awesome game that was based off of Kudelka, which is a really obscure RPG on the PS1. Shadow Hearts was set in an alternate, like World War One era, except there's like magic and demons and shit.
Alternate timeline first, right?
Yeah, it's an alternate timeline, World War One, except there's magic and demons and shit. And the cool thing about Shadow Hearts is that when you attacked enemies, you use this thing called the ring system, which you kind of like use the time to attack to get the ring to stop in different areas. And
Kind of like the common attacks that you see in Mario RPG.
no, they're not like
Like the
Mario
Seven
RPG.
Stars,
They're
or
not like
Super
Mario RPG. It's kind of when I say it's like that, I mean it's time to like you have to. There's a. It's the ring looks like the face of a clock, except you don't have two hands. You only have one, and you basically as the hand spins, you have to press buttons at certain times to get certain effects to do certain amounts of damage. And if you don't do it properly, depending on the difficulty of the attack or the power of the attack, it would be faster, slower, or more difficult to pull it off. And that's how you like it was engrossing enough to keep you interested, but it wasn't so difficult that it was like this is really hard. So it wasn't.
It wasn't it wasn't ball breaking, but it wasn't easy as pie.
Yes, that is the perfect example for it. Not ball breaking, but not easy. The next part of this article, the first two Grandia games were remastered and re-released recently, but the series is well overdue for a proper sequel. The original Grandia made its debut on the Sega Saturn and the PlayStation. It introduced a turn-based battle system where movement and positioning were vital, and attack order and interrupts were a key element. Grandia 2, originally for the Sega Dreamcast and later ported to the PlayStation 2, was widely considered a high point for the series. The PS2 also hosted Grandia 3, which was a quality successor. I disagree. Grandia 3 sucked. Grandia 3 was terrible.
I'm glad I never had to. I was about to say, I'm glad I never had to work with Grandia 3.
Grandia 3 was terrible. Grandia 3 made one of the cardinal sins of RPG series, which is it introduced like there's two party members in Grandia 3 who just fucking disappear and you never see them again. Like that's just some bullshit.
I was about to say, isn't that worse than what happened with Eris?
I mean, Eris was kind of a shock, and kind of sucked, but I mean, there were story reasons as to why she died. I mean, like, it's like some.
I was saying, is it worse than Eris?
Well, yeah, it is. Because Eris dying in Final Fantasy VII made sense for the story. Because they had to have some reason for Cloud to be pissed at Sephiroth. And like the whole time you have this thing where Eris is kind of like flirting with Cloud Strife. And, which is kind of weird because Tifa's like throwing it at him and he's like, I'm not going to do anything with you. But Eris, Eris mildly flirting with him and he's totally into it. I don't understand. But, no, the problem with,
well, at least we could agree on that.
Yeah, the problem with Grandia 3 is that there's like two characters who join your party early on in the game, and they're with your party for like a little bit of time, and then they go away. Like, like you know how Origami King basically has characters join your party and then they go away and then it just constantly it's like there's no real party. You just like certain characters join then they leave. It's like this. It doesn't really feel like a quality
I was gonna
RPG if
say
I
that's
don't have a
kind of like
party.
I was gonna say it feels like more like a solo adventure. Like what was it? Final
Sticker Star,
Fantasy for the Game Boy? Huh?
Sticker Star.
No, 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 no. I said for the GBA. I said it was the Final Fantasy that
You mean
that
Secret
was
of Mana?
I was talking about the
Legend of
Final
Mana?
Fantasy that was an insult to Final Fantasy on the Game
Uh,
Boy.
well, the only Final Fantasy game on the Game Boy wasn't a Final Fantasy game. They called it that, but it wasn't a Final Fantasy game. It was
That's the one.
no, but that wasn't. It was like the first Secret of Mana game. It wasn't Final Fantasy. They called it Final Fantasy, but it had nothing to do with Final Fantasy. It's like Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. That like
That's what
How Final Fantasy Mystic Quest basically would add characters and then take them away. That's what happens in Grandia 3. Like you get party members like in the beginning of the game, your character's mother is with you in the party, and then like your airplane that's piloted alongside with your mother, she's like your co-pilot, crashes, and she winds up hooking up with some random pirate guy and just leaving you for the rest of the game. You never see your mother again. I mean, it's the most fucked up story. Like,
I was gonna say that's the kind of thing that you'd expect from from cheesy RPGs,
yeah,
as
yeah,
in real cheesy.
yeah, and plus the combat system isn't that good either. But anyway, back to the article.
As in it doesn't have that flow thing.
It's the writing sucks, the voice acting sucks, the combat isn't nearly as good as Grandia 2. Or Grandia Extreme. The dungeon focused PS2 spin-off called Grandia Extreme. I disagree. Grandia Extreme was actually pretty good. I had it. It's actually a pretty good game. It's not great, but it is pretty good. A Grandia MMORPG lasted about 3 years in Japan, and the series has not been seen since. I don't feel bad about that because Grandia has
I think
sucked
the
for a
last time
while.
we saw anything Grandia was I was about to say, wasn't the last time we saw anything Grandia was on mobile?
No, I think there was a re-release of Grandia 1 and 2 on PC, and that was pretty good. Anyway, let's keep it moving.
Okay, I was at least I asked.
I mean, someone may have like emulated it on mobile, but yeah, if you want to play Grandia 1 or 2, you can go on GOG, you can go on Steam and play it. No problem. The re-releases, the HD up-res re-releases. Star Ocean was an Enix franchise that began on the SNES and shared much in common with the Namco's Tales of Fantasia, the game that launched the Tales JRPG franchise. Both were JRPGs with impressive graphics for the 16-bit era, and the action-based battle system that showcased flashy special moves, and members of the Fantasia development team went on to work on Star Ocean. Where Tales remained rooted in traditional fantasy, Star Ocean was a science fiction fantasy hybrid involving space travel with aesthetics clearly inspired by Star Trek. The Star Ocean franchise continued with well-received sequels for PS1 and PS2, Xbox 360 title Star Ocean The Last Hope, which was later ported to the PS3. The series' most recent title was the fifth main entry, Star Ocean Integrity and Faithlessness. Star Ocean 5 was in development for the PS3 and the PS4 version alongside it, like Persona 5. Unlike Persona 5, only the PS4 port was released in the US. Integrity and Faithlessness received mediocre reviews. Free-to-play follow-up Star Ocean Anamnesis fared better in Japan than abroad, though its success in Japan at least gives somehow. Jesus, y'all need to hire a fucking editor. Gives some way for future franchise entries, even if the last two outings did poorly in the West. Yeah, I'm gonna say like the PS1 Star Oceans did well because the first PS1 Star Ocean was literally just a port of Star Ocean 1. And Star Ocean 2 was a direct sequel to that game. Um, Star Ocean on the PS2, the two that were on the PS2 were pretty good. Star Ocean on the PS3 was okay. Um, The Last Hope. Really, they should have.
Yeah.
The Last Hope isn't great, but there's a twist towards the last third of it that makes it brilliant. Um, but I have to agree, yes, integrity and faithlessness. That's exactly what they need to. They need to call that game integrity, and that's the exact name for it because it lacks integrity. And if you had faith in this franchise, it's gone because that game is fucking terrible. I mean, it is
Ouch.
bad. you know, that Capcom game, Remember Me, that Capcom wants you just to forget that they ever
You.
made.
Some of that is a painful reminder. Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, much like Capcom wants people to forget that game, I want to forget that integrity and faithfulness ever existed. I played that game. I was like, this is fucking terrible. I mean, it's bad. It's really bad. It is. Ugh. It leaves a bad taste in your mouth. But anyway, let's keep it moving to the. Speaking of Capcom, the Breath of Fire games were the flagship RPG series for Capcom, but the series has not been revisited in several generations. The first two games were on the Super Nintendo and established many of the reoccurring elements that would define Breath of Fire titles, including a protagonist dragon in human form, Ryu, and a winged girl named Nina, among others. Breath of Fire 3 and 4 both released on the original PlayStation and received positive reviews. Particularly Breath of Fire 4, which is considered a high point for the series by many fans. I mean, I personally like Breath of Fire 3 more than 4, but I can see why people would say that. The fifth game, released for the PS2, was highly divisive. Breath of Fire 5 Dragon Quarter traded the fantasy motif for prior entries for a science fiction aesthetic, added real-time combat elements, and a gameplay mechanic requiring multiple restarts before a player could complete the story. Capcom re-released the first two Breath of Fire titles for the Game Boy Advance, but there's been no announcement of either a console sequel, or compilations of past Breath of Fire games, as many other Capcom franchises like Mega Man have received. I agree. That series was going pretty well up to the third game. Then the fourth game was kind of weird. And then the fifth game just literally shat the bed.
That game really made a mess.
Yeah, Dragon Quarter was bad. Like, Dragon Quarter was one of the worst RPGs I've ever played. It killed the That is the game that killed the Breath of Fire franchise. Was Dragon Quarter. Speaking of games that
made a mess.
Kill franchises. So, Wild Arms. Now, anyone who's heard me on this cast knows that I love Wild Arms. Wild Arms was a Sony first-party JRPG franchise, made its debut on the PS1 before Final Fantasy VII. Each game showcased an anime intro and a memorable soundtrack, with worlds that combine a Wild West motif with science fiction and fantasy elements. The gameplay included quality turn-based JRPG battles and puzzle solving. The first two Wild Arms games released on the PS1, and the last three came out on the PS2. Wild Arms 4 and 5 shared a system that added a small hex grid to the map to battles, giving the game some elements of a tactical RPG. The final Wild Arms games was a full tactical RPG spin-off, Wild Arms XF, released for the PlayStation Portable. Most of the Wild Arms games were reasonably well received, but the series never made the jump to mainstream success, and it appears that Sony has abandoned it. Although many fans would welcome a sixth Wild Arms title on current gen hardware. Yeah, I would too. I liked Wild Arms. I thought it was really good.
I could fully agree that the Wild Arms was a good game.
Yeah, Wild Arms had the first two Wild Arms games had combat that was like your prototypical turn-based combat for an RPG, but what they really shown was the setting. It was like a Wild Wild West steampunk setting, and the dungeons were more like Legend of Zelda dungeons, like 2D Legend of Zelda dungeons, except isometric and 3D, because you kind of like had to like use your tools to like hit switches and cut ropes and to traverse the environment. I would love for Sony to bring that back, but Sony these days is just kind of full of dickheads, so that's not going to happen. The final bit of this article is,
I was going to say, as much as Square Enix,
I mean, at least Square Enix still does make RPGs, but like they haven't completely abandoned their RPG roots. Sony has basically said fuck it to RPGs. But anyway, the last bit of this is there are other RPGs, JRPG fans series that fans would like to see to return. Return. While Nintendo's tactical RPG franchise Fire Emblem carries on, many lament the end of the quirky Mother series, known in the U.S. as Earthbound, whose third and final entry, Mother 3 for the GBA, still has not been localized. Officially, you can get like a fan made patch for that game and play it that way. Konami's Suikoden series has been dormant since Suikoden 5 for the PS2. The two Lufia games, actually, that's not true. We also have Suikoden Tear Cries for the DS. So that game came after Suikoden 5 for the PS2. You slipping, son. The two Lufia games were beloved Super Nintendo classics, as the two Lunar titles were for the Sega CD. But both of those franchises have received only portable remakes and spin-off titles, rather than proper sequels. In the current gaming market, mainstream console releases of JRPGs may be more of a financial risk than they once were, but genre fans would likely rally around the return of any of these beloved franchises. We got through the article. So what are your thoughts on that?
I agree with some of that, especially when it comes to certain RPGs, especially with the Grandia and certain others. I just feel like some of those are just going to be lost to history, basically. But at least we could say that those games, at least, for, are are begging to be redone in a better sense.
Um,
Hopefully hopefully not in action RPGs. Don't get me, don't start me on that.
what, like that
I will
Lufia
fight
2
you to the end.
remake? Like that Lufia 2 remake that turned it into an action RPG? Thanks a lot,
Yeah,
Square
I will.
Enix, you bastards.
Yeah, I will turn. I will turn somebody into stone for that stunt. If I get a chance.
Yeah, I didn't like that game. I didn't like that action RPG remake. I was like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, I literally was like, what is this?
I was gonna ask what what happened this round.
No, I mean that Lufia 2 remake released by Square Enix. It was terrible. It was god awful. I was like, what possessed you to make this game like this? But that's neither here nor there. Let's keep it moving. What games have you gotten this year that were a delightful surprise? How so?
Um, to me, if anything, the most thing I had was as far as a likely surprise would be the Nexamon because if anything I thought it would be kind of a low watered down game with of what I was thinking of, but actually turned out pretty fun for me. Like I actually got some good chuckles and it gave me a lot more to enjoy to work with than what I'm usually working with.
All right, that's cool. A game that I got this year that was a surprise for me, um, as in, just and when I say surprise, I mean like literally, like I got it and I was like, I didn't expect this game to be good. Um, was a Steam game. All right, and you're going to be surprised by this, but Nickelodeon All Star Brawl, despite its issues, I've actually been having a lot of fun with. Um, you can tell that the developers were put on a shoestring budget and made a really really good Smash Brothers Melee clone. But instead of it using like Nintendo like video game characters, it's Nickelodeon characters. But you can tell that even though they didn't have the money to get the voice actors or anything like that, they still made a really well made game, and I give kudos to them for that. The other game I got that I was like, I'm surprised this game is that good is King's Bounty 2.
If I remember, wasn't King's Bounty something like a point and click adventure once?
Uh, well, it wasn't. It was never a point and click adventure, but it's kind of like a computer RPG game. It was ported to the Sega Genesis back in the day, and it was like kind of like a Western style computer RPG ported to a console. There was a lot of that back in the day, but recently there was like a remake a few years ago, like almost 7 or 8 years ago, where they basically did a series of remakes of the game for PC. And I was like, I really like these games. It switched developers, but I was like, I like King's Bounty. I want to play it again. And I've been surprised how good this game is. I've been enjoying it for what it is. It was a surprise. Um, and I like surprises. So, are there any other games that you've gotten this year that you're like, wow, this is much better than it has uh, any business being, or you weren't expecting it to be, like, you were thinking it was going to be one thing, but it turned out to be something else?
Um, the only the only other one I might be thinking of would be the Cadence of Hyrule, but that that's probably a low bar.
All right.
I'm just guessing here. At least with the audience I'm working with.
Okay then. So that leads to the next topic. Considering the Legend of Zelda as a series, so all the games in the series, 2D and 3D, what would be your idealized, aka the best version of a Legend of Zelda game? This includes story, setting, gameplay mechanics, etc. Go.
Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a trick because if anything, I'm not a fan of the 3D ones, but if anything, I could at least ask for maybe some kind of heavy emphasis of story to work to link all the storylines together. Like talk about the multiple multiple links that happen in different timelines. That would be a real fun one, and how somehow this might be the way to break the legacy of the Triforce, and for and you're trying to actually find a way to do it. Going through dungeons, actual dungeons, not the kind that's in Breath of the Wild. Maybe you can get some key items from a shop or two, but you also get key items from dungeons as well. And I think that's probably about it before going into um characters and monsters and bosses and stuff. What about you, Red?
Um, I would like to see a Legend of Zelda game that, like almost every Legend of Zelda game that Nintendo's come out with, all takes place in a post-apocalyptic Hyrule. You know what I mean? Like shit is always fucked.
As disaster has happened because of Ganon in some
Either
point.
Ganon or something else. It's like always a fucked situation you find yourself in. For example, the original Legend of Zelda, like Link gets lands on the shore of Hyrule that's been taken over by Ganon and other dark forces. Legend of Zelda 2, the princess is in a sleep, and Link has to go through dungeons to wake her up and fight an evil version of himself. Legend of Zelda 3, yeah, Hyrule's is in the process of being taken over by Aghanim, But then you go to the Dark World and you find that the Golden Land, which once was this beautiful place, has been corrupted by Ganon's Dark Wish. So while half of it's not fucked, the other half of the game is. The bigger half, because there's more dungeons in the Dark World than there are in the Light World. Ocarina of Time, yeah, before you go to the future, Hyrule is kind of teetering on the edge. But then you go to 7 years after Ganon took over Hyrule, and it's a shithole. Um, Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask, you're trying to avert an apocalypse, but Termina is still kind of shitty before the apocalypse happens, due to Skull Kid cursing everything. Wind Waker. I mean, that's straight up an apocalypse. Everything was flooded. Twilight Princess. You could argue and say that Hyrule isn't as apocalyptic as other versions, but you have Princess Zelda who, in the wake of a few of her soldiers getting wiped out, just gives up and lets a hostile force take over the kingdom.
I was gonna make the comment that that's the weakest Princess Zelda, and somehow I think she's still stronger than the strongest time of Princess Peach Toadstool.
I mean, not really. The strongest Princess Peach we have is in Super Princess Peach, where the powers of her emotions can change reality. And that's pretty powerful. But that's neither here nor there. So then we go to Skyward Sword, which, I mean, arguably Skyward Sword is a post-apocalyptic. Shit is so bad in Skyward Sword that the Hylians, the precursors to the Hylians, levitated bits and pieces of land into the sky and live above the clouds. So yeah, it's not exactly a bed of roses and candy. And then we move to Breath of the Wild, which once again another post-apocalyptic future. I would like to see a Legend of Zelda game.
I just want to make the comment that sure, we do need conflict in order to motivate us through the game, but can we at least have a change up?
I would like to play a Legend of Zelda game where Link, where the major portion, like, you can basically kind of do the whole dichotomy thing that Legend of Zelda is known for. We have like Light World, Dark World, or the past and the future. Like maybe the game, like your easy kind of tutorial areas in Hyrule where you're getting the skills you need, but then you have to cross the ocean. So there's like maybe 3 or 4 dungeons that you travel on the seas to another country where there's like 6, 7, 8 dungeons, and that's where the real fight happens. Cause I'm fucking tired of post-apocalyptic Hyrule. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of post-apocalyptic Hyrule. Do something different.
That in a sense, yeah, I was gonna say that in a sense, pull off something like they did in Soul Calibur, and have Link go to another land to stop an evil.
Yeah, or even okay, like I'm just gonna since I said story setting, I'll just combine those two with this description right here. Imagine if you had a Legend of Zelda game where there's no Ganon. Like Ganon, this is not Ganon is the primary villain. Because I know I said you can't have a good Legend of Zelda game without Ganon as the primary villain. Give it a fucking break, okay? I'm tired of Ganondorf. Okay, have a Legend of Zelda game because we know other countries. We know other countries exist in the Legend of Zelda universe. So it doesn't always have to on this shitty little country Hyrule, okay? So why don't we have a Legend of Zelda game? What?
I mean, you have a. I was gonna say that we had at least one time that we had somebody else that was the main villain, and that was in, of all things, the Minish Cap.
Yeah, but that's not a mainline Legend of Zelda game.
Which kind of bites, because if anything, that would have been a breath of fresh air, literally.
But anyway, as I was saying, so basically, here's what I'm saying. Okay, how about we have a Legend of Zelda game where a neighboring, like an opposing country from across the ocean or the sea, wants to invade Hyrule and take it over. But they don't want to just immediately send their army over there because Hyrule would be aware of that. They basically send people in to destabilize Hyrule. So they do something to make the Gorons fight the Zoras. They do something to make the Hylians fight the Kokiri. They do something to make the Gerudo fight the Hylians. Like basically just making all these different like these minor conflicts. And basically by Link dealing with these conflicts, you come to discover that all these things are being orchestrated by someone, by a hostile nation. So that's where the game, like, those are like your 3, 4, 5 dungeons in Hyrule, and you find out what's going on. Then you travel across the ocean, maybe do hit 2 or 3, maybe 4 dungeons on the oceans, and go to islands and towns on the and like cities and shit, you know, and go to the other enemy nation and find out, oh, these fuckers are insane and they're really powerful. Um, and that's where you have like your 8, 9 dungeons, tougher enemies, different enemies, expansive stuff, like really interesting stuff. I would rather have that than the same shit all the time we have with, oh, it's Hyrule, it's post-apocalyptic Hyrule, and it's Ganondorf, and it's someone like it's getting old. It's getting.
I was going to say this. This is what happens when the Triforce of Courage is the least powerful and most powerful at the same time.
Now, I wouldn't even say it's most powerful. The most powerful is the Triforce of Power because unless you have the Master Sword, you cannot be killed. if you have the Triforce of Power, there's only one weapon that can kill you. You're immune to everything.
I mean, say you forget that the only thing that can affect you is anyone that has their own pieces of the Triforce.
No, it's not even other pieces of the Triforce. They can stall you, they can trap you, but the only way you can be killed if you have the Triforce of Power is someone who has the Master Sword. That's it. That's the only. And here's the thing. They have to have an awakened Master Sword, which means they have to have the Triforce of Courage. That's it. And good luck. I mean, good luck. Good luck getting that shit. The Triforce of Wisdom kind of sucks. I mean, if you're a woman, you can make yourself look like a dude and shoot energy beams at people. I guess that's cool. I mean, the Triforce of Courage didn't get a cool ability until Twilight Princess. You can turn into a wolf. that's kind of cool. I mean, shit. It's better than it was in previous games where it did nothing. Absolutely nothing.
As I said, it's the weakest and strongest at the same time because it's the weakest because it has basically nothing unless you're dealing with the Triforce of Power.
Yeah, and even then, there's no guarantee that even if you have even if you're fighting someone, like the Triforce of Courage just gives you a chance at defeating Ganon. You still have to be skilled enough to pull the shit off. Not to mention, there's been Legend of Zelda games where Link has fought Ganon and he didn't have the Triforce. For example, Skyward Sword, Link fights Super Ganon. I know that Zurum is not supposed to be Ganon, but come on, it's Ganon with a head full of hair. And there's no Triforce in that game.
Oh.
Yeah, the Triforce of Power is insanely powerful, except Ganon cannot grow his bald spot, cover up his bald spot. It's just all that power, he can't fix that one thing.
I'm trying not to laugh, but you're making it hard.
Yeah. Gameplay mechanics. I just want to see a Legend of Zelda game that brings back traditional dungeons. I like. Breath of the Wild kind of took a step in the right direction, but then took 2 steps backwards. like you can collect all this shit, but it really you just use it for cooking and maybe upgrading a few of your armor. Um, so here's a gameplay mechanic I would like to see in my ideal Legend of Zelda game. Uh, weapons, tools don't break. So tools would be things like um, hammers, gauntlets, um, hook shots, bombs, stuff like that. They don't break. However, weapons can break, but they don't break in like, oh, they're gone, they're breaking, they're gone. They just wear down over time. And how you can basically determine how well a weapon is you can basically see the crafted level of a weapon. So like if you go like in the opening of the game, you go to the first town and you buy an iron sword. The iron sword's made by the village smith, who's just he's a guy who mostly makes horseshoes, nails, like cookery
His
knives.
quality is his quality. His quality is going to show.
Like he's gonna make like moderate quality goods, okay, for weapons, because that's not his forte. However, if you go to Goron Mountain, where there's like almost every Goron there is a fucking mastersmith compared to Hylians in some beginner town, you buy a sword from them like a soldier's broadsword. That shit's gonna be well crafted,
Uh,
okay, and
and it's going to last.
a well-crafted weapon's gonna last a long time. And if you do like, you should be able to do a side quest to get master-crafted weapons. Master-crafted weapons never break. They don't wear down. They hold their edge, but they're expensive, and the quest to get them should mean something. Okay, kind of like how in Ocarina of Time you had
It's
to go through that.
exhausting.
In Ocarina of Time, you had to go through that long ass quest to get bigger on sword, but it was worth it because it did so much fucking damage. Same thing. Um, and Link should be able to create weapon repair kits from all the shit he collects to repair his weapons on the fly. Now, of course, no matter how good you how much shit you collect, clearly you won't be able to take something back to 100%. Um, unless maybe there's some side quest associated when you'll get the skill to do it later on. But you should be able to make it functional.
At least you could be able to fix it. Yes.
Like, hey, my sword's getting a little worn.
Have it be able to be working.
Yeah, my sword's getting a little worn. It's a well crafted blade.
Patch
Okay,
it up a little.
It's like at like 30% or 20%. Like once a sword goes to poor quality, it does your weapons don't break. They basically they do less damage. I think that would make a lot of sense. Like if you're because clearly, yeah. I mean, in the real world, if you're a warrior and anything, you have to maintain your weapons or they'll break. So a sword over time, your sword will its ability to do damage goes down. Your bow will start shooting, like your arrows won't go as far, and they won't do as much damage.
It'll waver a little, right?
No, well, for the bow, what's getting worn is the bow string. So your arrows aren't going to shoot as far, and they're not going to do as much damage because the string's getting worn out. That would make sense to me. Also, if you want to have shit get worn out, have your armor also get worn out over time, and then you have to repair that shit, or take it to a blacksmith or an armor and have them repair it. However, it's cheaper for you to learn how to repair the shit yourself, because if you take it to an armor, especially for like high quality armors, they're going to charge you an arm and a leg to repair that shit. It's not going to be fun. But yeah, that's it. Yeah, that would be my ideal Legend of Zelda game. And I did story setting and gameplay mechanics. Anything else you want to add before we move on to the final topic?
I think we're good. Though, wouldn't the final topic be a free for all?
Yes. So our last topic is free topic, and then nominating our a hole of the week. Who wants to go first? With do you have anything you want to any topic you want to bring up?
Well, recently this is going to be going backwards to one of our topics a little bit. And I recently heard that the GTA trilogy, they hit the under one category, which is kind of I think where Blizzard's World of Warcraft, I mean Warcraft Reforged is.
Actually, Warcraft Reforged is worse because they didn't take it off the store and fix it. Um, from what I heard, Rockstar is still trying to fix uh, the GTA 3D Definitive Edition. Now I'm using air quotes here when I say fix. They could just be taking out a few files that they don't want people to know about and then put the shit back up there. I don't know, but that's still, at least they're trying to do something. Versus what Activision Blizzard did, put that shit out there and made it worse.
Oh yeah. The main thing I was saying that the that that the newest report I heard was that they hit the 1.5 section.
Yeah, it.
I mean,
They.
hit under one section.
Yeah, they removed it. They removed it off of the Rockstar launcher. Like, if you open the Rockstar launcher, it is not available. Even if you downloaded it, it is not available. So, because I downloaded GTA San Andreas the day it came out, Thursday, still broken. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's gaming for you, folks. And that's what I say when these companies have problems releasing their legacy content. I don't know, like, how could you have a game that people give a fuck about these games? Like, they're iconic. How could you release them in a broken state? I will never understand that shit. You know, this goes back to the first topic. And, this isn't just me, look, this isn't just a Rockstar issue, because last week Nintendo did the same thing with their online games for the Nintendo Switch. I don't get it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Like, but that's it. So now we have, I don't have any free topics, Dad. The one I wanted to cover last week's already been said, and plus we are kind of already went in depth about um,
some of the stuff already.
the legacy games just not being released properly. So that brings us to nominating our a-hole of the week. So I have 3 companies.
And we got plenty of nominations.
Yeah, I have. There's like 5 companies that are up for nomination. The first one is Rockstar for releasing a game that they knew was broken, or at least, like, I mean, here's what it means for this to be released in the state it was in. Either they knew it was broken and they put it out anyway, or which is bad, or there was very little quality control done on these games and they were put out anyway, which is worse. Because one is malicious and the other one is incompetence. Take your pick. Ditto, same argument I just made for a second nominee for A-hole of the week. Nintendo for that same shit. Either they put this shit out because they didn't do the quality control, either they knew it was broken and put it out, which is malicious, or they didn't do the quality control to make sure that it was up to code, which is incompetence. Either way, both of these companies should know better. The other nominee for A-hole of the week is Activision Blizzard for the truth finally coming out that their stock over is overpriced, and
Fraudulent.
well, it was just overpriced. It was overblown. Like it was like $160 and it went down to 60 per share uh, over the last 2 weeks, which really it should have never been 160. It should have been around $60, $70 per share. It was overpriced the entire time. Um, the next the next nominee for a hole of the week is Disney for basically.
Which surprise.
Well, Disney showed off a lot of shit for Marvel fans, and they're canceling and pushing shit back for Star Wars fans. Disney for showing yet again that they have no fucking idea what they're doing with Star Wars. No idea whatsoever. They don't have a clue. They're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I can tell. I can see what you're doing. You clearly don't have a clue. And it's kind of sad because, you know, people want to play good games. And our final nominee for A-hole of the week is none other than Meta / Facebook for thinking that changing their name is gonna change the shitty smell that keeps on coming off.
That they got into.
Yeah. Like let me put it this way: if my dog goes, if I'm walking my dog and she takes a dump as she's wanting to do when I'm walking her, right? And I take some gold spray paint and spray paint that turd, it's still a turd. Me spray painting
Much as somebody would wanna cover it up, it is.
I can't change that turd. That turd is still a turd, you know? Me spray painting it into something else isn't going to change the fact that it is a turd. And that's all I'm saying. Like Facebook can change its name a cajillion times. It will still be a turd. So those are our 5 nominees for A-hole of the week. So are we voting on?
Yeah.
Or who do you think deserves to be A-hole of the week?
This is like picking. This is like picking. This is like picking your least favorite thing to
Stick
have
in your
for
eye.
dinner.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if anything, I'm kind of between Activision Blizzard and quote unquote Facebook.
Yeah, I'm going with Facebook. And my reasoning is this. The reason I'm going with Facebook for A-hole of the week is because Facebook thinks that by changing their name, it's gonna change.
Yeah, free card.
Well, that's gonna change perception, but Facebook is still a steaming cesspit of dog shit. It's kind of like if Facebook is like a restaurant that you looked in the, you know how in the newspaper they have the section of restaurant closings and they tell you why a restaurant closed, and it's like finding out a restaurant that you hated anyway got closed down for cockroaches and rats and human feces in the food. And then they changed the name of the place, but the management hasn't changed. Like they changed the name of the place, but the management hasn't changed or anything like that.
Oh God!
And you're sitting there like, it doesn't matter what they changed the name to. I'm still never going there. And that's Facebook. Like it doesn't matter what they change it. Fuck Facebook or Meta or whatever the hell.
Activision Blizzard and Facebook. Yeah, you lead me to Facebook. So congratulations.
Yeah.
Trying to hide behind. trying to hide your mistakes, you get a-hole of the week.
You know, I mean, Activision Blizzard finding out that they pumped up their stock value and it was overvalued. I'm not really surprised because I'm like, they don't make games that good for their stocks to be valued that highly.
How about Red?
And them losing half of their value, that could be a good thing because Bobby Kotick might get fired because he lost the shareholders so much fucking money. So that's a good thing. I mean, they might finally grow the balls to say fuck this guy. So you know that's actually a good thing. But yeah, Meta, aka Facebook, fuck those guys, asshole of the week. Anything else you want to add before we wrap things up? Oh well. So that's the end of the podcast. Rate, comment, share, subscribe. Um, Peace and good night. If you would like to get in touch with the channel, you can reach me at mrredfoxbsbuster@gmail.com. There's a link to the Discord in the description. You can also reach me on Twitter at mrredfox91. So peace, good night, have a good day. Oh, Jewel, you want to give your sign off? Okay, I guess she's having audio issues. So, I guess Jewel can't give her sign off. So,
Testing.
okay, Jewel, you want to give your sign off?
I was having technical difficulties, so sorry about that. But anyways, thank you for joining us on the BS Busters of the Week podcast. If anything, you'll catch us Wednesdays and Saturdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern. You can get us by email, by Twitter, or by coming to our Discord. Not sure if you got that already.
That is, I already gave all that. Just give your sign off.
If anything, it's been nice working with you, and hopefully things will be better next time.
Yeah. So that's the end of the podcast. Rate, comment, share, subscribe. Peace and good night.